Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Medieval Europe 1000 Years in 20 Minutes. Okay, this is going to be quite fast, but there's probably going to be a lot of information to absorb. So let's check it out and comment, like and subscribe.
In the Middle Ages, a new civilization was forged on the European continent.
Roman
Nobles
Empire?
and kings, faith and warfare, culture and learning, trade and innovation. These set the foundations of the modern era. This is the story of how Europe was born.
Such a huge continent.
In the first 2 centuries CE, the vast Roman Empire engulfed the Mediterranean Sea. It was a time of stability, prosperity, and peace, the Pax Romana. Citizens enjoyed its flourishing culture, fair quality of life, and relative security. This was achieved
wasn't
through
so
Rome's
nice.
centralized government and advanced infrastructure. In the remote eastern margins of the empire, a new religion was born, Christianity. Beginning as
Oh,
a small Jewish sect, it slowly spread throughout the pagan Roman world.
I didn't know
In the
that.
4th century, it was embraced by the emperors, becoming the official state religion.
Wonder how that happened.
But by then, Rome's glory days were over.
Oh,
The empire was suffering from inflation, plagues, famine,
it's crazy
and
to think we've been
invasions.
dealing with that for
Managing
years.
it from a single center was becoming impossible. In 395
Oh, because it was so big.
the empire was divided in two. A western empire with Rome as its capital, and an eastern one ruled from Constantinople,
Oh, but it was
also
the same.
known as the Byzantine Empire.
Oh,
While the east was urban, rich, and prosperous, the west was rural, poor, and weak.
oh my god, I tell us
It
all the
didn't
time.
last long. In the deep forests beyond the empire's borders, barbarian peoples were on the move.
Where did it came
These were
from?
mostly Germanic tribes led by warlords and their loyal bands of warriors. These groups were pressing harder and harder on the Rhine and Danube rivers. Without much choice,
There was
the
sort of a
Western
natural
Empire
border.
began allowing them entry.
Oh,
Eventually,
why?
the frontiers were breached, enabling various peoples to migrate and settle within the borders of the empire.
Well, that's bad.
Whether guests or invaders,
Yeah.
these peoples carved up Roman territory while imperial authority was crumbling.
Well, all
In
empires fall.
476, the barbarian leader Odoacer deposed the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire,
he
Romulus
kill him?
Augustulus. This child emperor had no
He was a
real-
child?
but his removal stands as a milestone. The Western Roman Empire was no more.
Okay.
The so-called Dark Ages had begun.
Did he kill a child?
Romans, Christians, barbarians. These were the 3 main ingredients
so many
that
people.
combined to create medieval Europe.
Okay, this was the longest period, 500 years.
Around 500 CE, Europe was covered by newly established kingdoms ruled by barbarian kings. Their elites, emerged between Romans and barbarians,
Oh,
had
they
gradually
joined.
converted to Christianity.
Okay.
The most prominent kingdoms were those of the Ostrogoths in Italy, the Visigoths in Spain, and the Franks in Gaul. But these kingdoms were lacking key elements necessary to manage successful states.
What? A
The
leader?
great cities of antiquity were depopulated, some left in
Oh.
ruins. The Roman transportation system decayed, eroding communication and long-distance trade.
It's crazy because we still
Coins
have them.
vanished, leaving no economic system to support professional armies. Literacy plummeted, crippling administrative systems.
That's why it's called the Dark Ages,
Most
right?
notably, peace and security were gone.
This is like a
impoverished
disaster.
rural West was becoming more and more localized, fragmenting politically and linguistically.
It's hard to
In
keep
the
power.
first centuries of the Middle Ages, it paled in comparison to its stronger neighbors.
Which was the stronger neighbor? It's gonna be hard to sort of maintain power
In the 6th
throughout
century,
many territories.
Byzantine Emperor Justinian I strove to reconquer the West and restore the Roman Empire to its past grandeur.
Okay.
But after conquering Italy from the Romanized Ostrogoths, the peninsula fell prey to new invaders, the Lombards.
I know.
The Byzantines had to accept that the
Oh.
division between East and West was final. But soon they had to acknowledge yet another division,
And they're
this
Italians,
time
right?
between North and South.
Oh.
In the 7th century, Arab armies swept through the Middle East and
Of
North Africa
course.
with astonishing speed, creating an immense Islamic caliphate. Where one civilization once thrived, now there were 3. Islamic, Byzantine, and medieval.
Well, this is what
For a
there's only
brief
three.
moment in the 8th century, it seemed as if the fragile and weak West might be overwhelmed by the Caliphate.
Yeah.
Muslim armies crushed the Visigothic kingdom in Spain, then went on to raid Francia. But in 732, in the Battle of Tours, they were defeated by the Franks under the leadership of Charles Martel.
Oh.
Islamic expansion in the West was halted, and the victorious
that's
Charles
how it
gave his
stopped.
name to a dynasty that was to change European history forever, the Carolingians.
Oh my god. Okay, this is the second part.
Charles Martel's son, Pepin the Short, seized the
Pepin
Frankish
the
throne
Short?
in a coup. He fought the Lombards in Italy, granting the Pope his own most desired autonomous state.
Oh. How
Pepin's
old was
son
that
was
again?
the famous Charlemagne. After ascending the Frankish throne in 768,
Oh.
he spent decades fighting and expanding his kingdom.
I didn't know that.
Ultimately, he held sway over most of Western Christendom. In 800 CE, Pope Leo III anointed Charlemagne Emperor of the Romans.
Of everything.
More than 300 years after the fall of Rome, the
Oh,
West
it's been
had an
300 years.
emperor once again. The Carolingian Empire was the first great power of the medieval West, leaving an enduring legacy. Charlemagne backed an intellectual
How is this the first time they've had a West power? The Romans were there.
and cultural flowering, the first of several medieval renaissances intending to revive the lost knowledge and culture of antiquity.
Oh, okay. Trying to
The
restore
empire
the Roman
disseminated
power.
throughout the West various political structures, institutions, titles, ranks, ideas, and dreams. Most importantly, an ideal of a unified Christian West. These formed the bedrock of medieval civilization.
There's union in power. Or there's power in union, basically. Oh, it disintegrated. Okay, that's
The
bad.
Carolingian Empire was short-lived.
Okay.
The attempt to create centralized rule in the West
Didn't
suffered
work?
from insufficient infrastructure. Small cities, weak
Oh.
economy, limited bureaucracy, and poor communication.
What was the economy back then?
After Charlemagne's death, his three grandsons fought one another, and in 843, in the Treaty of Verdun, divided the Frankish Empire among themselves.
Okay.
The Middle Kingdom quickly diminished, leaving only West Francia, which would eventually become
That was the
France,
only brother
East
that
Francia,
went
which
to
will
the
one
set
day
of time.
become Germany. These kingdoms continued to splinter and fragment, a process accelerated by external pressure.
That's what
In
we
the
end up with
9th and
countries.
10th centuries, a new wave of invaders attacked the crumbling Carolingian world from every direction.
Another. Ooh.
The Vikings came from the north,
Oh, this is the
roaming the
Vikings.
coasts and rivers of Europe, raiding and terrorizing the population. The Magyars, better known as Hungarians,
Oh, yeah, the
poured in
Hungars.
from the
Hungary.
east, plundering defenseless settlements. And finally, Muslim pirates and raiders
Oh my God.
landed on Europe's
They're
southern.
being invaded by all sides.
Europe was under siege.
Yeah. It's a miracle that they even survived. As in Europe.
As the West was crumbling under repeated attacks, kings lost their power while
Yeah.
local elites grew stronger.
Well, that's
Europe
been
was
less
getting
good.
covered with a dense network of wooden castles, serving
Made
as
of
fortified
wood?
residences of local noble families. From these strongholds, lords subjugated the peasants in their vicinity, extracting
Again,
their
wooden
resources.
castles.
Lords
still-
ruled their lands by coercive force.
Yeah.
In previous
You're a
centuries,
landlord.
peasants were an integral part of infantry armies.
Not anymore.
New military innovations, such as the stirrup, further established cavalry as a decisive
Oh,
force.
for military. Okay,
This new
advancement.
kind of warfare required resources only
Oh.
nobles could obtain.
Yeah, they were expensive, I guess.
Consequently, European elites became full-time professional fighters.
Yeah.
In a world ruled by a warrior nobility, territorial power was attained by vassalage. One noble granted another land and protection, and expected in return his fealty and military service.
Yeah, that doesn't seem great.
Kingdoms were becoming complex networks of personal relationships and mutual obligations.
Yeah.
Kings were often weak
And trades.
and could be easily overshadowed by their strong vassals.
Yeah, so you're
This is
to get a
often
lot of power.
described as the feudal system. Centuries would pass before centralized states would emerge again in the West.
Poor peasants. It's gonna be a hard time to live there.
In the
Well,
10th
must have
century,
been.
things started to change. better climate increased agricultural yield.
Oh.
External invasions ceased as Vikings and Hungarians settled down and were
Why did they
absorbed
settle
into
down?
Western Christendom.
Oh,
And
they
in
were
some
defeated.
regions, royal authority was gaining ground. In Britain, King Alfred the Great and his successors unified the various Anglo-Saxon realms, creating the Kingdom of England for the first time.
Oh, for the first time.
In West Francia, while political fragmentation continued, Vikings who settled in the north swore loyalty to the Frankish king. They became French Christians, known as the Normans.
Okay.
Duchy of Normandy created a buffer against other raiders.
And what about the other side?
In East Francia, Otto I, king of the Germans, managed to defeat the Hungarians in the Battle of Lechfeld in 955, putting an end to the invasions from the east.
Okay.
The settled Hungarians eventually established a Christian kingdom of their own.
Yeah, they're settled
The
somewhere
victorious
else.
Otto the Great was crowned emperor in 962.
Emperor?
Had an empire once again,
Okay.
this time a German one. It was later known as the Holy Roman Empire.
What's up with the name change?
After centuries of turmoil, Europe was finally gaining stability and confidence, ready to change course.
Once again, they've changed courses like 300 times, but
The year
that's life.
1000 marks a turning point in European history, ushering in 300 years of growth and prosperity.
Oh, it was good again. Great. Now seems like a great place
Better
to live here.
climate, combined with new technologies and techniques, led to an agricultural revolution. Europeans produced more food, resulting in population growth.
Growth. Yeah.
New villages and towns were established, and existing ones expanded.
I'm wondering if a lot of the old cities that we have in Europe are the product of this. They're the ones that still withstood the set of time.
Throughout Europe, forests were cleared as more and more land came under cultivation. This enabled immense economic expansion and commercial revival. Bustling trade networks fed a massive
Yeah,
urbanization.
that seems nice.
Old
I love
and new
it.
cities grew larger, becoming international hubs for a new class of merchants. These merchants won their independence from feudal landowners, forming self-governing cities.
Oh, but they have
This was
cities?
most evident in Italy, where merchants revived the Mediterranean trade.
But they had their own
As
cities? What?
quality of life improved, art, architecture, and music flourished.
The Renaissance.
Europe was becoming increasingly literate, and the first universities were founded under the
I wonder if everyone
auspices
had
of the
access
church.
to this.
European intellectuals initiated a new renaissance based on the rediscovery and revival of ancient knowledge.
Oh,
But
so they
Europeans
went
were
back.
not only conquering internal frontiers, they were also pushing outward.
Outwards where? What's left to conquer? You have all Europe. What?
During the Central Middle Ages, aristocrats from the Carolingian heartland conquered and colonized new territories, pushing the boundaries of Western Christendom.
Oh, okay, just more.
This process, described as the Europeanization of Europe, resulted
what is
in
that term?
expanded and more homogeneous civilization.
Oh, okay. Creating a
In
European
1066,
culture.
William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy, invaded England. In the Battle of Hastings, he delivered
not
a
right.
decisive blow to the Anglo-Saxons. England was transformed into a Norman stronghold.
They just kept fighting each other.
In-
That's crazy.
The Christian kingdoms of the north fought the Muslims to their south, gradually extending their control over the peninsula. This was viewed as a reconquest.
Yeah, the Reconquista.
In southern Italy and Sicily, Norman warriors conquered vast territories from the Byzantines and Muslims.
Everyone
They
returned
allied with
south.
the Pope and established another Norman kingdom.
Oh.
In Eastern
Well,
Europe,
that's another thing in
German
Sicily.
aristocrats and peasants gradually moved eastward, settling on Slavic lands.
Oh, and that was
But
That wasn't
Europeans
popular
were
there
casting their
before this?
gaze further still. In 1095, Pope Urban II called on Christian warriors to liberate Jerusalem and other holy sites of
oh.
Muslim infidels. Crusader armies swarmed to
Yeah, the
the east,
Crusades.
establishing several states on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. These states proved to be a weak Western outpost.
Yeah.
Over the course of 200 years, they were reconquered by
Yeah,
Muslim forces.
that was a failure, right?
Nevertheless, they signaled an important message. The Catholic Church had awakened.
Oh, it wasn't powerful before? Oh, okay. So it's just maintained power throughout so many years.
In the early Middle Ages, the Pope was weak, holding
Really?
little influence outside Italy. The
That's
Church
crazy to
was a
think of
loose
this.
network of priests and monks, appointed and controlled by local aristocrats. In the 10th and 11th centuries, a movement emerged set on reforming the church and society as a whole. The reformers demanded to free the church from the world, to extract it from the influence of kings and nobles, and rebuild it as a papal monarchy.
They wanted to be independent, I think.
Gregory VII, an enthusiastic reformer, clashed with the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV over the authority of appointing bishops in the empire.
Okay.
The first round of conflict ended with Henry waiting for 3 days in the snow outside a fortress at Canossa,
Where's that?
begging
In
for the
Italy?
Pope's forgiveness.
Speaking of
Second round,
forgiveness.
however, ended as Henry invaded and appointed his own pope, forcing Gregory into
You can
exile.
do this? Okay, apparently you can.
Although it
or
seemed as if
could.
the emperor had won, in the 12th century it became clear that the papacy and the reform were victorious.
Yeah.
The church had become a robust, centralized, hierarchical organization with elaborate administrative and legal systems
Kinda like it
and
is now,
immense
right?
resources. Its power stretched across Europe.
And
At
all
the
because
top
of
of the
that.
pyramid was the Pope, ruling the church as an absolute monarch.
Yeah.
As popes grew stronger, kings were left envious.
Look at you're
Then
jealous of the
they
Pope.
followed suit.
It's crazy that you're jealous of the Pope. Oh my god, how
Power
powerful
of
was the
medieval
church actually?
kings was constrained by the armed aristocracy. During the Central Middle Ages, their numbers vastly increased, and castles were multiplied, with wood being replaced by stone,
Oh,
designed to grow
okay.
bigger and stronger.
That's where the stone came in.
Aristocratic lifestyle and culture underwent refinement with the advent of the Christian knight ideal
What is
and the
that?
code of conduct known as chivalry.
Oh, what's your
But at the same time,
That's very cute.
aristocrats in some regions were faced with the emergence of stronger kings and kingdoms. In England,
Okay.
the Anglo-Norman dynasty formed a small and consolidated state, free of the feudal mess abundant on the continent. In Iberia, the reconquest of land from the Muslims strengthened the Christian kings, enabling centralized states to emerge.
Yeah, everyone was a Christian, I
In
think.
France, the
At this
kings of the
point.
Capetian dynasty gradually expanded their personal domains, enabling a functioning state to form there as well.
Well, that's what you wanted back then. A functioning
However,
state.
in the Holy Roman Empire, the exact opposite occurred.
Okay, it's up
The
here.
once mighty empire disintegrated, forming
Why?
a mosaic of autonomous principalities. Emperor
But why?
Frederick Barbarossa attempted to restore the empire's former glory, but failed.
Yeah, I love
The
these
title
names.
of emperor, now bestowed by electors, became an empty.
Why was it empty? You don't have
The
power.
Central Middle
This is your
Ages
name.
saw an agricultural revolution, urbanization, expansion, stronger popes, stronger kings, and vibrant culture. But around 1300, the climate worsened, growth halted, and famine spread. A great calamity was approaching.
Oh, the Black Death. Yeah, the rats. Yeah, it's bad.
The 14th century marks a watershed in European history. In 1347, a global plague
How did it
now
occur,
known as the
actually?
Black Death reached Europe. It rapidly spread across the continent and within a few short years killed approximately 1/3 of the population.
Living here
It was an unprecedented
awful.
demographic disaster. Entire settlements were wiped off the map.
Entire?
Recurrent outbreaks of the plague would continue striking Europe for centuries.
Wow. Before centuries, I thought it
However,
was
during
cheers.
the 14th and 15th centuries, Europe recovered. And for some survivors, the consequences of the plague were not so grim. As the
How?
population dropped, land became widely available, and the demand for labor rose
Oh
dramatically.
my god, because people were
The
dead.
bargaining power of peasants and workers increased, and they demanded improved conditions.
Okay.
When elites refused, revolts erupted across Europe. Nearly all
They
of them
wanted to
were
form
brutally
unions?
suppressed. Yet, in the long run, change was inevitable.
Okay,
In
yeah.
Western Europe, peasants
more
gained
people.
new freedoms and opportunities, and workers enjoyed higher wages. Out of the darkness of the Great Plague, creativity emerged. Technological innovation brought forth the wind and water mills.
I don't understand how, but okay.
New techniques for metal production and processing, and of course, the
Oh.
printing press. In the quickly
Oh!
recovering cities, new cultural trends flourished. A new renaissance thrived in Italy, set on reviving and surpassing the cultural achievements of ancient Greece and Rome.
How crazy is the
Renaissance
world was going
scholars
back?
developed a new outlook on the world and on man's place within it. They defined the past millennium as dark ages,
It was a
and so
millennium.
positioned themselves as the transition between the medieval and modern world.
You can just say 1,000 years were bad. Some good came out of it.
In the late 14th and 15th centuries, gunpowder transformed European warfare.
Oh,
The
I can only
bravest knight
imagine.
could be shot down by simple infantrymen from a distance,
It's been a nightmare
and the
to
most
be in this.
fortified castle could be breached with cannons.
Yeah.
Supporting the new infantry and artillery armies was a costly affair,
This is so
which only
expensive.
kings could manage.
Yeah.
As they strove to monopolize the use of force within their territories, kings consolidated their power and asserted their authority over the aristocracy. These nobles, who lost their military superiority, began serving their rulers as administrators and courtiers. The
Oh, of
sovereign
course, this
state
is changed
was
again.
In these troubled times, Europe's new military innovations were constantly put to the test.
Well,
The
you have to
100
chase
Years'
them somehow.
War waged between England and France devastated the French countryside. The war's course was reversed by a peasant girl, Joan of Arc,
Oh, that's where
who
she
rallied
came.
French troops against the English. Eventually, England was pushed out of France. In Iberia, the marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile led to the emergence of a unified Spain. Their combined armies conquered Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in the peninsula.
Crazy it lasted
These
for so long.
developments lay the foundations for the modern nation-states of England, France, and Spain. Other regions, such as Germany and Italy, would have to wait several centuries for their
Yeah.
unification.
A lot of centuries.
As the Middle Ages came to a close, Europe had not only recovered from the crisis brought by the Black Plague, but had also rebuilt itself on strong
That's
foundations.
crazy.
Gradually, its focus shifted outward. By 1500, Portugal had traversed Africa and the Indian Ocean,
Yeah.
opening up commercial routes to the Far East, while Spain
They started
turned
expanding
westward,
everywhere.
crossing the Atlantic Ocean and reaching the Americas. Columbus's voyage in 1492 is sometimes considered to mark the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern era.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Over the next
Makes sense.
centuries, European expansion would transform the globe and create the modern world we live
Yeah.
in today.
This was such an interesting video. I think there's a lot of it that you kind of, because I think you kind of know the history, obviously, but you don't really know, because this is a timeline, it's wonderfully prepared. So, of course, you get the sense of, oh, okay, now I get things a little bit better. I think one of the things that it's just kind of crazy to think about, it's, again, small decisions and decisions that probably they weren't thinking they were going to affect. Probably, they know it's going to affect our lives at some point. But no, it's going to affect years to come. It's going to affect all, and not just in Europe, all sort of modern times as we know them. It came from here, which I think it's crazy to think about, because you can really sort of trace back the origin of a lot of things back to some of these decisions and some of these time periods, which is, again, it's crazy. And also, I think obviously Europe, we know it's a huge continent, it's a huge powerful continent, of course, but we can see how much of an influence I think Europe has had throughout all the world. And of course, this is kind of easy for me to say, and I think probably it's easier for you to sort of go and talk about this because you're not sort of living in here, and it's something that happened. It was a history of 1,000 years. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight or in 10 years, 20 years. But again, it's really crazy to think of the influence that Europe has had throughout the world. And you can, maybe I think you can sort of, oh yeah, I know. But I think when you see it like this, illustrated like this, it's really eye-opening. They changed the course of so many different territories and just all over the world. It's not just the ones that are closed, because you can, yeah, sure. Again, maybe Asia, of course, they're related to Asia because they're right next door. But even, obviously the Americas, obviously Africa, which it's also a little bit close together. But it's just all over the world. I think it's just crazy how a whole sort of power, and again, European powers and just territories, one side of the Atlantic or one side of the ocean, can actually change the course of history of another territories that are just so far away. It's kind of crazy to think about this. Another thing that I think it was kind of crazy. The one when obviously because technology is always going to advance and new technological sort of devices and way of life that I think changed because of technology, which I think is probably the main sort of thing that makes things change and lifestyle changes is obviously technological advances, because I think it's probably the main precursor, I don't know how to put this, but it's just the main thing that probably makes, I think, lifestyle and the way people live, it's through technology. And maybe sometimes it's not, again, it doesn't happen overnight, but just over several years, you kind of get the sense, oh yeah, our lives have changed. As in, I don't know, phones in this modern sort of time period. I don't think people realize how much time a smartphone has changed. It's kind of how people live. And you can think about this now. I think people that are, I don't know, older than, I don't know, an 80-year-old probably, they can't remember obviously a life without, again, computers, the internet, and yeah, probably that all traces back to the internet. But obviously they can always think of a time where you didn't have a smartphone, you didn't have access to information, and you didn't have contact access to how how someone was living, or just constant communication. And it's great to think about this as in, again, an 80-year-old or maybe a 75-year-old. They're not that old, obviously. As I think they're still young. Well, maybe not super young, but there's still time ahead. Usually. So it's kind of crazy, I think, for them probably to think, oh, how we used to live 40 years ago. I remember a time where this was the norm, and now it simply isn't, and you just kind of get used to this, and it's a part of your life, and it's part of your nature. But it's kind of crazy for them, or must be crazy for them, to sort of think of a time where that wasn't it. And I think I liken that to something like this, especially I think when the sort of gunpowder was, I don't know if it was invented or just started being used. But I think, again, it's kind of crazy to think how something, a technological advancement can just sort of change your whole life and how you live in just sort of the blink of an eye. And again, sometimes those changes don't happen overnight, but once you sort of wake up one day and you realize, oh, how life used to be 10 years ago, it's crazy, unimaginable to think we were able to live like this for thousands or hundreds of years before this. So obviously my example of the phone and the internet is obviously not the same, but I think it must have felt like that because, again, you're used to a way of life which has been the norm for years. And then obviously something comes and sort of transforms all of this, and then you have to change absolutely everything. Obviously, this was quite dramatic, and you're also probably, and I'm guessing maybe peasants or people from way back in those days and probably farmers, they weren't thinking, oh, this new invention, this gunpowder, for instance, is going to affect how we live. It's probably not going to change. No, it will change a lot. It's going to change a lot of how you live because, again, those little sort of decisions and those little technological advancements and those little things actually make an impact and actually kind of decide how your life is going to go. Even though you're not aware of this, but again, they do have an influence, and it's kind of crazy to think of, oh, they just woke up one day and their way of life was just, oh, we cannot live like this. Now it's a different thing. And it must have been pretty insane for them. And maybe more of an impact maybe for the kings and sort of the aristocracy that lived like that for 1,000. They were sort of used to this. And now it's, oh yeah, our castles that have been, our castles are super safe. We feel safe here. It's been the norm for years, and then, oh no, think again, not anymore. And obviously all the cavalry and all the knights and stuff. It's no, you can get shot in the blink of an eye, and now you're dead. And no, you don't have to fight. You don't have to, I don't know, train for years with a sword and know a lot of things about training and combat. It must have been insane. The other thing that I was so happy about, in a way, it's sort of positive, like looking for positives, I think, in bad things, is the Black Death, the plague. It's obviously something awful happened. I would actually love to know how it actually occurred, because I'm thinking, well, yeah, I know it came from rats. I think there's still plague, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think we still have the plague, only that we now have we have medication, we have other things, and we can cure people now. Obviously, back in those days, they didn't. It must have been a nightmare situation. They didn't really know what was happening. They probably didn't know. I don't know if back in those days they knew that rats were the ones transmitting this disease. But either way, it must have been sort of an insane sort of nightmare situation, because you're seeing everyone around you dying. You're very scared of this happening to you or your loved ones. and you don't really know, you can't do anything basically. It's sort of, oh, can we move? I mean, I don't know how, or maybe if they could, probably no, it wasn't as easy as I'm gonna pack my bags, I'm gonna move somewhere else. Probably they didn't. It must have been a very scary time for people, and again, a very sort of a nightmare. I cannot even imagine how awful it must have been. But I think on one hand, it's kind of good that they apparently, oh, some goods came out of it, because you're seeing, and again, you usually kind of you're being taught, oh, the Black Plague and all of this was obviously an awful time period, which it was, of course, it killed so many people. But some good came out of it, and some positives came out of it, which I think, well, in a way, that's kind of good. It shows us as humans that even in the darkest sort of time periods, there's still some positives that can come out of this. And even though maybe, I don't know if they were thinking about this when it happened, probably they weren't, because they were kind of living through this. And of course, if you're living through this, it's kind of hard to sort of take a step back and see, oh, how this affected us, or how can we change things for the better. Probably, again, when you're living in it, it's not so, you kind of I need some time with it, and then you're going to see it and you look back on and you think, oh, well, you know what, probably this wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have this sort of awful thing happen to us. But I'm happy to report that apparently, no, it wasn't all bad. Thanks to that, there was something good, which, it's crazy, and it's kind of even crazier to me. Then again, I do not know if before this, previously, the plague that we as humans have been dealing with the plague. I would assume we had, but it's crazy to think, what, 1,000 years later, or 100 years later, more than 100, but whatever, it's just 100, well, more than 500 years later, we're still dealing with sort of the plague. Again, less of a concern, but it's a disease that we've been dealing as humans for a very long time, which I think is kind of crazy. Shouldn't we probably get back on it and see, hey, can we defeat this? Probably it's not so much. Again, it's not much of a concern anymore because we have the medication, so it's fine if you get it. It's sort of like the flu. Probably it's not like the flu, but again, it's just sort of, you're not gonna die. It's okay. But no, whatever. The other thing that I thought was kind of crazy as well was sort of the church sort of thing, because you again, oh, the church is very powerful. It's a very powerful institution. But it's kind of insane to me. Oh, there was a time period, I thought, oh, the church has been powerful since always. Not necessarily. And this, I think, illustrated perfectly. No, it wasn't. There was a time period in which actually the church was not really that powerful. They were sort of weakened, and no one paid attention to it. Not that, again, probably the church as in the Catholic Church, I think it probably has an impact for Catholics and followers, or Christians. I don't know exactly who was supposed to follow the church, but whatever. It has an impact, obviously, on people that follow their religion. But I know, obviously, the Vatican it's a state. It's a sovereign state, so it also affects sort of global politics and other sort of other states and other people. It doesn't really matter if you are part of that religion or no. The Pope is still a head of state, and he still has influence. So it's kind of insane to me that we have that the Catholic Church is sort of a thing that separates, and it's separated from a lot of other sort of sovereign states, and it's a territory that I think you can't really, it's the only one of its kind in the world, because again, it's about religion, but I mean, yeah, but also no, because it also affects other people. They don't have anything to do about this with this religion. So it's kind of crazy to think about it. It's, the Catholic Church, kind of a wild institution to exist, right? But again, I was thinking, oh, it has always had a lot of power, and you're constantly hearing about, yeah, of course they're very powerful, they're very rich, but not apparently. And again, it was just like one small decision that this king came, and again, sort of, oh no, I'm going to depose this pope, I'm going to put another. I don't know. Is this because of I don't know obviously what the intricacies of what their problem was with each other, of this pope and the other king, or there was an emperor, but it because of that, and they were not seeing eye to eye. Then wouldn't you know, 500 years later, we have the Catholic Church, we have the Vatican. It's insane to me to think of those things. And or the other thing, it's again, with the expansion, I think is kind of crazy, as in Europe, as in the continent, which they were constantly thinking, because you're seeing, and probably it's me seeing this with modern eyes, sort of, oh yeah, Europe is huge. Obviously, there's so many different cultures, and we can see this again, sort of the remnants of these cultures are part of our territories and countries that we have in this day and age, which I think it's kind of I don't know if you. I mean, it's a proud. I think we should feel proud. Yeah, but everyone came from here, so it's sort of wow. Yeah, your ancestors were part of whatever of this. Obviously, probably at this point in time, probably your ancestors were everyone in this time period. But it's still kind of insane. You can see how separated I think all of those all those tribes were, and how distinct they were from each other. And I don't know, how would they feel in this day and age if they would know, hey, would you know that this territory that you sort of occupied, here's your people, here are your descendants. It's gonna be crazy for them. Obviously, they were probably marveled by a lot of other things, but I think just in that sense, I think it would be kind of crazy. I would love to ask them, and or just see how they think about this. And lastly, I think one of the things that I think the video sort of was really, it really does illustrate is how a lot, and I don't know if we still have, maybe I think even in this sort of, again, this modern times, as in probably the last, I don't know, 200 years, probably around this, it's not like that anymore. But I think for a huge chunk of history, and for a huge time, I think we can see this 1,000 years at least, I think people once, obviously something bad happens, but I get all civilizations, all empires have to fall at some point, which obviously it's something that we cannot really think about, because it's, what do you mean our civilization is going to fall at some point? Who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I think if time is prologue, at some point, I think humans maybe are going to fall. Who knows? But I think at some point, they were seen as so powerful, but then they fell because something happened, whether that was natural disasters, or diseases, or just, again, another tribe came and invaded them, whatever, just different sort of situations. But the whole point is, at some point, civilizations fell. And then there's a rebuilding process. The silver lining is, even though things fall, there's always going to be something that takes its place, and something new is going to grow out of it, and something new is going to come up. But one thing that, again, is just the whole, we're constantly doing this, or we're doing this, is the whole, we have to restore sort of past sort of enlightenments, we have to restore past powers, and we're always looking back. There, at least, and that's what I mentioned. At least, I don't think maybe I think probably people now have changed their it's sort of, I don't know, point of view probably. I think people now see as, no, we have to advance, we have to move forward. And back in those days, I think it was probably, again, for at least the year, 1500s, people were still looking back, and of course they wanted to advance, but through looking back, they were constantly, we have to restore power. We have to go back to the previous enlightenment. We have to go back to how the Greeks were before this, and before that, it was how the Romans were. So we're constantly being seen as any time past was better, and that's what we have to restore, which I think is kind of crazy, because, even though and I get it, I think in a way, of course, you want to advance, you want to improve, but I think you want to look forward? It's, instead of looking backwards, we should constantly be looking forward, and how we can advance, how can we be better, but through probably, I don't know, by things that we do not know of, I think, and instead of sort of trying to replicate things past, which no one's saying they were bad. No, they were great. That's why they were considered great and powerful. But I think maybe, again, the sort of mental sort of style, well, again, people I think have just mental sort of, not mental, it's just people I think about this a little bit different these days. It's just, no, instead of looking back, we kind of have to look forward, and we have to invent new things, and we have to change about, I don't know, it's not just about replicating things past, it's more about innovating. And I think maybe that's the biggest, I think, change we could see. And it's really, so we were still as recent, and again, as recent as, it's kind of crazy to think of the 1500s as recent, but in a way, it's not that old, I think, again, for civilizations, and for, again, just for cultures, that's really not a long time. But it's crazy that, even though, again, until that long ago, people were still sort of trying to replicate past eras, and the past was always better. It's, well, I don't think so. We should probably look forward, and I'm happy to report that apparently I think we have sort of made the switch, and now people are more sort of, no, we have to innovate, and we want to move forward. We have to innovate and not necessarily try to restore past things. At least that's what I think. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.